with the author of The End of the Apocalypse. What inspired you to create this story?
Well, it's a motion picture that's coming out on November 30th, and it's a zombie Christmas musical. And so the film itself, as we've been working on the film for about a year and a half now, just starts getting in your blood. And the team is probably the most amazing team I've ever worked with on a film or a TV series. And the deeper and deeper you get in with them, the more and more the passion just catches on. One day we were just sitting around the office, and I said, you know, this really does belong in a YA book. So, voila, there you go.
What elements of this particular, because the zombie genre is very, very saturated, but what makes your story different as compared to like a traditional thing? Is it the musical element or what?
Well, the musical element really differentiates the film, but when you're writing a book, the real challenge becomes, you know, there's 10 songs that communicate all kinds of emotions and story journeys, and once you take those out, you're left with really what's printed here on the page. So our challenge as authors were to really try to figure out how to still bring the same emotion that those songs deliver and feed them into the book. You have to do a lot more descriptive character mindsets. You have to get inside deep with what they're thinking in the given moment and try to explain that to the reader a little bit more. Now, we did something quite unique with the book because the film is a musical, and we included a couple of the songs very lightly, not to the point where you have to actually read full song lyrics, but there's a couple that are more comedic in nature, and that really helped us because they just literally wrote themselves kind of right into that moment in the story.
Nice. How much of the setting, per se, do you think influences the nature of the story? Like, is there, like, the culture of Scotland and whatnot, or what?
Yeah, it was a real challenge for us when we were writing it because we sat down and we did these story work sessions and we were trying to beat it out. Catherine Turner and myself are the authors of the book. And as we got deeper into it, we wanted to make sure that it gave the proper nod to Scotland. I live in Glasgow, and so I'm so incredibly I'm the American relocated to Glasgow, so I'm so passionate about Scottish culture because I find it still so fascinating that we wanted to make sure that we kept the essence, and that's very much the essence of the film. However, what we didn't want to do is alienate the rest of the world, so this isn't really necessarily a bagpipe, haggis, meal type of story, so we wanted to make sure that you know, readers particularly, could relate to this story no matter where they were from the world. So we touch on it, and you'll see several weather references in it, which is, you know, when you live in Scotland, pretty much what you talk about all the time is the weather. And we wanted to keep that element of it in the book.
So this was adapted originally from a YouTube series in 2010, an acclaimed one. What inspired you to say, hey, this needs to get made right now? Like, what was it about the story?
Well, there is a very special group of people that literally birthed this thing. It all started with Ryan McHenry, and he's the one that did the short that you're referring to. And then a team of his friends around him saw it as their mission. Ryan passed away at a very early age, and his friends saw this really as a mission to take his vision forward and see the project reach its full fruition. And so one of our producers, Nathan Ali Carew, was one of the primary drivers. Nick Crum, Alan McDonald, who actually wrote the screenplay with Ryan, they really never ever gave up. And I think that by spending so much time with the team, it also made me feel incredibly passionate. I never had the chance to actually meet Ryan, but I feel like I'm now, as part of the team, carrying the burden of let's make sure that we bring this to the world and show his vision and see it all the way through. So I think that had the most to do with it.
If you could leave a word of advice for any aspiring authors or people who wanted to get into production and whatnot, what would it be?
Well, all I can tell you is to get a book made is tough as shit. Or you might have to bleep me on this one, but it is no small task. And I've been involved with several books before this, but more from my corporate position. I was a corporate executive at Disney and at Mattel. And when we created worlds and brands, it was a bit easier with the heft of a corporation behind you to go out and talk to publishers. When you're doing it from an independent label, you really, really just have to believe. You have to believe more than anybody else on the face of the planet that that story deserves to be told, and that it's going to be fascinating for the readers to submerge themselves into that world. And that's exactly what happened. I was lucky enough to meet the folks involved with this project prior to the script ever being shot. So I was on set with the actors. I was intimately involved with a lot of the discussions behind the scene. And the story just gets in your bloodstream. And pretty much I could literally, I feel like I could have sold it to almost anyone, because the uniqueness of the combinations of the zombie, the Christmas theme overlay, being a big fan of Shaun of the Dead, you know, and the genre, thinking there's still this really unique opportunity to have this particular story. I had never read anything like it. And so, yeah, you got to believe, and you can never give up.
Is there any musical piece in particular that you want to mention, or that think stands out for the series?
There's so many great ones. One of my very favorites is actually not even one of the official songs. It's called The Fish Rap. And in the story, what happens is there's two students in a talent show who are dressed as penguins, and they decide to do a rap about how much they love fish as penguins. And Roddy Hart and Tommy Riley, who are music composers and wrote all the music for the film, this is almost like a throwaway song. They kind of just roll up their sleeves and did this little extra scene for the talent show. And it's so hilarious when you see it both on the film but also in the book, that it's probably one of my favorite things. And the guys are on their way now because we're doing a Comic-Con, a New York Comic-Con panel here, and they're all landing probably any minute now. And anytime we're together, there's just this spontaneous breakout into the fish rap. So that's one of my favorites. The second one is probably a song called That Time of Year. And it's the one that's also performed in the Christmas show, and it's done by a very, very talented actor named Marley Sue. And it is what we call our sexy Christmas song on stage. And again, these two are probably the most comedic of all of them. And then it just keeps going. Soldier of War is like the power anthem. I get chills every time I kind of hear it. And There's No Such Thing as a Hollywood Ending is just the overall thematic of the story. So that one also really resonates.
Where can you find your book?
Our book is going to be available pretty broadly. Amazon will be carrying it, Books A Million, Pals, indie bookstores. I'm probably forgetting a couple more, but it should be out there. And if not, Google AnnaandtheApocalypsebook.com, and you'll also get a list of retailers.